Welcome back to class. And just as it had been earlier said, we will be continuing this class from where we stopped last class. We will be continuing from number 2, under forms in which living things exist. But remember, I told you, euglena is also another example of unicellular cells that exist as independent organisms. And by the way, take note that euglena is a controversial organism, while it has both plant and animal character. And as you can see projected on the slide here, you will see characters of euglena that are animal-like and characters of euglena that are plant-like, as well as uniqueness associated with euglena. Another unicellular organism is the trypanosome. Another is the chlamydomonas, and so on. So, 2, we'll be moving to cell existing as colony. Okay, so under cells existing as colony, here we do have several simple cells united by a protoplasmic strand. I repeat, several simple single cells united by being connected by a protoplasmic strand, and each cell actually have its own nucleus. That is to say, they have a nucleus that controls their activities independently, such that they are not dependent. Okay, they are not interdependent. However, they enjoy communal living to flourish and do well, and so they always exist, are always found clustered together, joined by a protoplasmic strand. And a few examples have been highlighted here. We have the volvox. Okay, we have the volvox, we have the pandorina, we have the sponge, and so on. I'll move on from here quickly to look at the next, which is cell existing as filament. But before I go, permit me to quickly call your attention to a diagram that often you might have been seeing. It is not a difficult thing to illustrate. Yes, just see. Okay, this is an illustration of what a colony of volvos looks like. And as you can see, these are independent cells. Okay, you can see the independent cells here, and then we have the protoplasmic strand. Okay, so this is a diagram of a colony of volvox. From here, we'll be moving on to the next, which is cells existing as filaments. Cells existing as filaments. Cells can also exist in the form of filaments when you have similar cells that are joined end to end. Come along with me. Okay. Under cells existing as filaments, just as I said earlier, we equally do have cells coming together, outlined and joined end to end to form unbranched filaments. Okay, to form unbranched filaments. Even though it is true that each cells that joins end to end have ability to function independently, yet they still do enjoy staying together in a community and do well in such community. So because they function independently, although being joined, they are referred to as multicellular. I repeat, even though it is true that the cells functions independently, however, because they are being joined end to end, it is referred to, cells that exist in the form of filaments are referred to as multicellular organisms. And a good example is the Spirogyra, which is very common, the greenish organism we do see in slow moving water bodies or similarly stagnant, partially stagnant water bodies. You see greenish stain either on surface of the water or somewhere around the water. Okay, that is the Spirogyra. And before the end of this class, the diagram will be illustrated. Also, another example is the Zygnema. That is not all. We have several other like Oscillatoria, OSCI. Okay, as I said, we have other examples like the Oscillatoria. We equally have others like the Eulotris and so on. And so, under cell existing as a filament, we'll quickly look at the diagram of the Spirogyra. As you can see, independent cell, however, joined edge to edge, and then sealed up in a sheet. Because they are sealed up in a sheet, we refer to this organism as being a multicellular organism. So, permit me to quickly locate other organelles within this very organism. Okay, I'm beginning to locate organelles within this organism. Okay, so I'm having my Spirogyra now fully represented on the board. Now we'll quickly go ahead to start labeling our diagram. Okay, so title, remember, we are to draw horizontal lines and we are to use a ruler. We'll be labeling left and right. Okay, so we have our cell wall already labeled out there. We have our chloroplast, we have the nucleus that regulates all activities of the cell. Equally, we have vacuole. We have pyranoid granules. Okay, we have the pyranoid granule equally located there, a form in which carbohydrate is being stored. So, and then we equally have the membrane. Aside just the cell wall, we now have the cell membrane. Remember here, I touched this as my cell wall. Okay, I touched that as my cell wall. Now I'll be touching the inner portion as my cell membrane. Okay, and all these collectively are encased in a sheet. So this is a singular organism. However, this organism is joined at the edge with another and joined at the edge with another, and this is continuous. So for this singular reason, since they are joined edge to edge at this level, we refer to Spirogyra as a multicellular organism. We know the functions of the part labeled. The chloroplast actually help with regards to photosynthesis. And then for our pyranoid granules, it has to do with protein piles, okay? Protein that are piled up in a pyranoid, and proteins that are piled up, and then starch are deposited around the protein. For the cell wall, we know it's basically made up of layers of cellulose, which help to protect the organism. It's, in fact, the cell wall is responsible for the slippery nature of the organism. I think with this, today, we will be pausing here, and we will be moving on when we meet next class. Thank you for carrying this long with the class. Thank you for logging in on this channel, Biology with Omotayo. Please kindly endeavor to share, endeavor to like, and endeavor to invite others as well to join us on this channel, so that collectively we will continue to learn and will continue to appreciate in value to build the required learning community in catalyzing a globally educated world. From the intricate working of the cells to classification of living things,